So I'll very quickly introduce myself. My name is Elliot. I'm one of the account managers here at Prospal. Some of you may know us as Grad Australia, which is one of the job boards that we use to partner with these employers that you see in front of us. Before I jump into introducing the panel, I'd just very quickly like to acknowledge, do a quick welcome to country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. And I'd also like to pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So I'd like to quickly introduce Kim. So Kim is going to be our MC for the panel session today. So she's going to be asking some questions to these panel members throughout the course of this panel session. Now, if you're online at the moment, you can see at the bottom, there should be a Q&A function. Now, if you have any questions for the panel members or myself, feel free to put the questions through the Q&A. Now, we may answer those live, or we might, one of the panel members might respond to that directly over text if it's more of a direct question to that employer. But if we can keep the questions to the Q&A function over the chat box, because it's going to make it a lot easier for us to facilitate it. Kim, please introduce yourself and walk through introducing to the panel members.
Great, thank you so much, Elliot. Well, as Elliot said, my name is Kim. I'm from Engineers Australia, and it's great to be your MC here today. What an amazing opportunity for students to actually ask questions of industry in one place. So yeah, I'm glad you all came along, and hopefully you'll get some of your questions answered. Now, we've got a great panel here today. We have 4 people, and they're going to each introduce themselves to you. So if we could start with Joe Hayes from BHP. Joe, if you'd just like to tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself and describe what your organization does, that would be great.
Oh, no problem. So thank you for the introduction. Joe Hayes is my name. I'm a mining engineer originally. Started my career with BHP back in the 90s as a graduate. So I've been hopefully in the shoes that you'll be in at some point in the future. For those who don't know, BHP is a global resources company, and one of the things that we're big on is our connection to our purpose about what we do as a company. And what that is our purpose is basically to bring people and resources together to build a better world. Culture is really important to us, and the exposure that you get in BHP, it's not just about the technical professions, it's also about what it's like to actually work for a global company, the opportunities that provides for career development, but also that real deep connection to people's values and the culture is really important for us. We do have the following presentation coming up. I think BHP are the first cab off the rank, so we can talk to you more about the grad program during that session. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joe. And Riolette Leroux from Thiess. Riolette?
Thanks, Kim. Thank you for this opportunity, Prospal, as well. My name is Riolette Leroux. I'm graduate coordinator at Thiess. Been in my current role for just over 4 years, in the industry for the past 11 years. And a lot of people are probably not always familiar who Thiess is. We're the world's largest mining services provider. Started with humble beginnings in the 1934s when the Thiess brothers registered a road or civil contracting company. And over the last more than 85 years, we came a long way. Today, we solely focus on mining, and our focus is to work together with our clients to deliver mining excellence across Australia, Asia, and the Americas. Work together with the likes of BHP, Rio Tinto, depending on the contracts that we do acquire from these owner-operators. We do everything from extraction through to rehabilitation. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Riolette. Jason Hume from Newcrest.
Hello, everyone. Welcome along. My name is Jason Hume from Newcrest Mining. Newcrest is one of the world's largest mining companies. We're Australia's largest gold producer, while we also produce gold and copper concentrate. We're involved in exploration, development, mining, the sale of those products. Global company with global assets, which is exciting. Certainly in Australia, we have our 2 big mine sites in Telfer, WA, and Cadia in Orange, New South Wales. But certainly global opportunities really excite us. At Newcrest, our vision is to be miner of choice. So there's a lot of work done at Newcrest, and our graduates get involved in our community with our stakeholders. They certainly get involved globally in meeting some of our other graduates from across the world, which is really exciting. And our graduate program, which we can tell you a lot about, certainly reflects some of those things as well.
Super. Thanks, Jason. And last but certainly not least, Romy from Anglo American.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. My name is Romina Gambarruta. You can call me Romy like everyone else, which is much easier. I've been with Anglo for 4 years yesterday, so yay to me. Anglo American, as you know, is a diversified mining company. So we have a very strong presence in the Southern Hemisphere. We've got diamonds, copper, platinum group metals, iron ore, metallurgical coal in Australia, nickel, manganese, and we'll have something new that is called crop nutrients. But I'll talk to you about the graduate program later on. Like Joe said, we have a presentation coming up as well. So I'm more than happy to talk to you about the graduate program. But in a nutshell, we operate pretty much all around the Southern Hemisphere, and we're really looking forward to talking with you today. So thank you guys for having me here today.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you to all of you for introducing yourselves. And now the students online have an idea of who's here. I'm going to kick off with a question to start, and that is, what is the most important piece of advice that you'd give to students aspiring to work for an organization within this sector? Yeah, maybe we'll throw that back to Joe, seeing we started with you.
Sure, no worries. I think for me on this one, it's about being as broad as you can be in your thinking at the early stages of your career. So don't necessarily focus on the technical discipline that you've studied. Obviously, that's going to be a focus of what you would be looking at in your role, but always be conscious about looking more broadly across the company. So understanding other technical disciplines, so other engineering streams, or in a mining company, you know, we're so dependent on the resource that's in the ground. You can't change what's in the ground. You just have to learn to deal with that. And so understanding that respect and that understanding the entire supply chain, I think, is really important in the early stages of a career. You know, what we have in our, as an example, our metallurgical coal operations in Queensland is very different from an operating perspective to how we operate our open cut mines in Chile, like at Escondida, which is, you know, the biggest copper mine in the world, I believe, but very different. And so understanding the context of the business as a whole, I think, is super important, irrespective of which employer you go to, just so that you get that bigger picture, big experience before you narrow your career down too far down one pipeline.
Great. That's some excellent advice there from Joe. And what about, the same question? I think this is really a valuable question to get lots of opinions on. So what about Riolette?
I would say, you know, for those aspiring to enter the industry, you know, it's vital to get to know the industry, to understand the industry. You know, if you, in the early stages of your studies, from second year onwards, it probably would be really good to try and secure an internship or a vacation placement. This is the best way to sort of get your head around how the industry works, what you can expect, you know, work as well as the lifestyle in mining. You know, it's also not just about what Joe mentioned in terms of just the technical aspects, but there's so much more, you know, that you get exposure to the communities. Jason already mentioned that as well. But I think to get an understanding of the industry, the career paths that are available, and generally just have an aptitude for learning. I think regardless of which organization you will be joining, it will be a steep learning curve. So have that aptitude for learning as well.
Thanks, Riolette. That's great. Jason, same question for you, but just before you give your answer, if I could just remind the students that there is that Q&A box that you're welcome to start typing your own questions up there. Thanks, Jason. Over to you.
Yeah, look, I think those pieces of advice are fantastic. How do you do that, though? How do you find out about the industry? How do you start to work out what you want to do with your career? Because there are a lot of options. And I think, so the piece of advice is probably make connections. make connections with the company, make connections with people who work for the companies or in that industry. You can do that through following companies on LinkedIn. You can do that by following people that work for those companies on LinkedIn. And you know, I've been in the mining industry for 4 years now, so not quite as long as Joe, I don't believe, but I think the people are lovely. No matter who I speak to, certainly at Newcrest and even wider as I've gone outside, they're happy to help. So ask the question, what's it really like on a mine site? What will I really do as an engineer here? What happens at Cadia with your mining methods? What happens at Telfer with your mining methods? Because they can be slightly different. I think if you can get some working experience, some internships, do a visitation. We have a summer vacation program from 12-week December to February. I think if you can jump on and actually experience what it's really like, and I think most of the companies that are here will provide real practical experience. I think that's where you're going to learn a lot, and it'll open up your eyes to the career opportunities.
Great, thank you, Jason. And Romy, over to you. Same question.
Thank you. Well, on top of what everybody else said, that obviously we fully agree with, I would also suggest to be flexible, be adaptable, and be mobile, because we are all here, like Thiess, Newcrest, BHP, Anglo American. We are all global mining companies or service providers for the mining companies. So make sure that you are, interested in exploring another commodity. Like, you don't have to get married to coal or copper or gold. So make sure that you research the company, but also research where they operate, see if that is of any interest to you, and see what the companies can offer you outside of Australia as well. Learn another language. That for me will be a massive one, right?
Great advice. I know, especially for English speakers like myself, we usually just have English. So that's also fantastic advice. Now, we have a question in the Q&A panel. It's from Farah saying, what are your goals in energy transition and how are you working towards achieving them? Anyone like to put up their hand to answer that on the panel?
I'm
Jason,
happy to.
you unmuted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, look, we're doing a whole bunch in this, and I think it's really important, not only for the community, the environment which we live, but I think there's a really strong business proposition behind this as well, of course. So, and it's really hard to have a vision to say miner of choice for communities when you're not doing some of this stuff. So, look, we're investing. We've got a team that's heavily involved in net zero transmissions. I think we're investing heavily in wind farms, electric. We've got a couple of teams we've introduced over the last couple of years. Mining automation robotics. We've got an innovations team that are looking at all these sources of energy, how we do our mining, how do we do that more sustainably than normal. And so there's a whole lot of practices like that we're certainly investing in, that's really changing how we do our work, but certainly making it better for the environment, and certainly where we live, how we live our lives moving forward.
Great, thank you for that. Anyone else would like to, Romy?
I just basically put something in the chat. We also have what we call our sustainable mining plan. So part of our sustainable mining plan is we're going to be using a lot less water than we're using now. So we're aiming to the waterless mines. We're reducing our carbon emissions by 30% by the next 3 years. And we're actually going on target with that. We also are moving towards hydrogen energy as well. So I just put it on the chat so you can go and have a look, because it's very extensive, and we have a whole global team that is actually working towards meeting those goals.
Great, that sounds exciting. Joe, yes.
Yeah, and look at similar themes as well. So BHP have got a net zero aspiration. We have an entire team who are purely focused on this energy transition. So, how do we actually use technology to our benefit, but also looking at, as an example, if you look at the real technical side of things, so process engineering, if you can actually extract material in a cleaner way, so produce less waste, you're automatically reducing your energy consumption as part of that. So less energy to run the processing plants, the grinding circuits, all of that sort of stuff. So it's not just the obvious things like electrification of trucks, etc., the solar plants or all the rest of it. It's actually thinking smart, again, going back to that full value chain and looking for every opportunity that you can to actually reduce any emissions that we have. Examples that we have as currently that we've already put into practice is our shipping. So we have biofuel, 100% shipping, energy generation for all of our iron ore cargo ships, as an example.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I've got a question here before I go on to the other one, and this is something that I get asked all the time by students that I work with, and that is, what is your organization looking for in an application? What makes someone stand out? Because there are lots of students who sort of, send in their applications and they get rejected before they even get in front of you. What is going to get people through the door into an interview? Riolette, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, definitely. I normally have this line saying, do sweat the small stuff. I think when it comes to, applications, submitting applications, make sure that they, that you're attentive to detail. It's extremely important to make that first cut, so to speak. When screening is done, there's an application form. At Thiess, we spend some time to put together an application form, and that's our first form or our first part of our screening. So it's the way in which you position yourself, that attention to detail. It's basic stuff, make sure your grammar is correct, that your cover letter is directed to the right organization. If you do see a lot of students that copy and paste or submit or never update their cover letter, etc., like that, it's those details that makes a difference. And also, demonstrate your interest in the industry and in the organization. And again, it comes back to what Jason mentioned as well. You get a lot of information from your contacts, networks, from LinkedIn. Just to be a little bit more specific in terms of answering questions, not these general questions that most people will sort of answer their application, but being more specific. Follow companies on LinkedIn, what type of projects they're involved in, what new technology they are testing, etc., and express an interest in those type of things that you would like to work in those areas. So it's, being real, but being personable and specific. But I do believe in sweating the small stuff, getting the basics right.
Fantastic advice. Does anyone have something to add to that? Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. I think it's pretty common these days that for these sort of programs where the war for talent is so high, it's not just about, your GPA as an example. As Riolette just mentioned, it's about, excuse me, being authentic and actually enabling us to see the real you. So, the skills that we look for at BHP, it's that natural curiosity. So demonstrate to us that you've actually done your homework, you've researched the company and what we do, that you're flexible. So, examples of, whilst you may not have been in a professional workplace yet, real tangible examples of where you've actually demonstrated that you can be flexible and adapt to different challenges. I think resilience is a really important one for us in the industry. There are a lot of changes, things do move around pretty quick, technology is advancing. So demonstrating how you can be resilient when challenges are thrown your way is really important. Collaboration, a huge one. The teams of the future, it's not about specific disciplines or different bits of technical knowledge and people operating in silos. Going back to my original comments at the start, it's about that breadth and making sure that, you're bringing the best out of everybody. And you can only do that if you can actually demonstrate that you're a collaborator and you're willing to listen to others, but also being able to respectfully challenge other people's opinions. So I guess in a nutshell, preparing for an interview, really try and think of specific examples that you can articulate very clearly about where you've demonstrated those sort of behaviours.
Fantastic. We have a question here. I see Riolette's typing up an answer, but maybe someone else would like to answer it as well. And that is, it's about diversity in the workplace. Does your organization recognize the importance of diversity within the workplace? And this is very topical. So it's one that I thought would probably be worthwhile answering for everyone. Start with Romy.
Yeah, that would be great. We actually, we're very strong and focused on diversity and inclusion. And when I talk about diversity, I don't just mean, gender. So like, as you can see, I have an accent and I come from a different place and I have a complete different background than HR. I used to be a geologist in my previous life. So when we talk about diversity, we talk about gender, diversity of thoughts, diversity of religion, diversity of degrees that you study, because we look for the future skills. We're not really looking for just for you to have a mining engineering degree or a geology degree. We look for what skills do you have that accompany your degree? What is the difference that you can bring into the organization? So it's difference of thought as well. So for us, diversity and inclusion is huge. We've got graduates that have disabilities as well, or different abilities, what we like to call them instead of disabilities. So it really depends on what you bring to the table, what we can offer you and what you can offer us, regardless of your gender, your sexual orientation, your religion. So it's really big for us.
Great, thank you so much. Jason, did you want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, look, absolutely. So it's about inclusion for us at Newcrest, and I think that certainly includes the diversity. And in fact, it's firstly making sure that you have a culture and an environment that everyone feels included, psychologically safe, able to speak up, able to ask questions, able to learn and grow, thrive, I think is one of the things we spoke about earlier. And certainly that's the culture we've had at Newcrest, and building at Newcrest even further. From the moment you start at Newcrest, inclusion, our company values is certainly what's taught to you. All our leadership programs and cultural programs talk about inclusion, from things like, and particularly talking about young graduates coming in, helping them get used to the mining industry. How does it actually operate itself? Then how does Newcrest operate? What about new experiences they'll have living remotely, away from maybe their normal home and environment? How do our supervisors and leaders support them, both mentally, physically, emotionally, in those environments? This is something that's really important to us. And while we talk about wanting to be miner of choice for our employees as well as everyone else, and I think that's really important. We know people are obviously the backbone of every company, but I think it's diversity will happen if you've got a culture where inclusion exists.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Joe. Yes, over to you.
Yeah, look, took the words right out of my mouth. Diversity it's an outcome of inclusion. So, making sure that everyone has a voice, everyone has the opportunity to be heard is really important. I can give you some examples about how we approach neurodiversity as an example. So if you're in a meeting, not everyone is comfortable with offering their opinion outright, or not everyone processes information in the same way. Some people like to respond straight away, others might like to go away and think about it and then come back with a response. So making sure that people understand each other as a team. So how do they operate? What is their preferred way of working? If people understand that, then everyone has that place where they can be included and bring their best selves to work. And the statistics speak for themselves. Our most diverse teams outperform other teams. So in terms of production, in terms of safety, it's there. It's not just empty words to satisfy the PR. It does actually make a difference. It's good business sense.
Great, absolutely. Now, Riolette, I'm going to ask you a different question. We'll move over to you. Just for students who land a job with Thiess, what advice would you give them to help them survive and thrive in their first year? What shouldn't they do?
I think we sort of touched on that in the beginning, and I think it was Joe that also mentioned, try and be broad and not very specific. Sometimes people will come in and they have these set goals that they want to meet at a specific time in their career, but just be a sponge, try and absorb as much as you can. And for graduates specifically, I would say, live in the moment. Sometimes the focus is so much in the future and what I want to achieve in the future and what role am I going to transition off the program, that they don't live in the moment and enjoy being a graduate, at that specific rotation. Live in the moment, be flexible and open and be a sponge. You will learn so much. But don't try and sort of overanalyze and focus too much on the future. It's good to have those career goals, But so often when graduates start on their journey, I think it's literally in the second week, I already have grads saying to me, oh, I know where I want to go for my second rotation. Or, what about this role of the program, etc. It's just like, live in this moment. Don't go too far ahead in the future, or too far ahead of yourself.
Great, thank you for that. Did anyone have something to add, or should we move on to the next question? Anyone? No, you happy with that? Right. Okay. Sorry, Joe, are you talking?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
Typing in the background. Yeah, I think the early years of your career are so important. Again, took the words out of my mouth. It's about being a sponge, right? So just absorb everything that you can in those early years. And I think the other part is most, I think, of technical professionals, the engineers that we have here today, a lot of your work in the early days will be out on site. Now, that is such a valuable piece of your experience that you will reflect back on for your entire career. I read a really interesting piece on LinkedIn last week about how those years that you have on site, they provide the stories for your future. So if you later down the track, you find yourself in managers' positions, as an example, where your job is to lead and to inspire people, if you can reflect on those stories from your time on site, which you get early in your career, it's really tangible examples. And again, comes back to that piece I said earlier about being authentic and relatable. And I think the other piece is, look, people that you meet in these early stages of your career, particularly on site where it is such a strong community, some of them will be your friends for life. I've still got, work colleagues who I still keep in touch with from 25 years ago, and, really, really strong relationships. So yeah, they're so powerful. So resist that urge to try and get a city job. Spend as much time as you can in those early days on site.
Awesome.
And,
thank you.
And
Jason?
can I
Yes.
just add ditto to that? I think that's really important. I think once, even people like me, once you get a job, you're in that job, and it's really hard for you to go, hey boss, can I have some time off to go and check out some other things that our company does? So a lot of graduate programs, internships actually give you some experience across a range of different teams, environments. A lot of graduate programs, will give you, if you're mining engineering, you're interested in, you'll get underground, you'll get open pit, you'll have some time with the drill and blast team, you'll have some time in the office doing some scheduling. Jump into those experiences. This is a great opportunity. And after the program, you'll start to work out what I like more or less. But don't be in too much of a hurry. Just soak it all up. That's going to do you really well for the rest of your career.
Awesome, thank you. Now we have a couple of questions in the chat. Farah has asked, what impact do you think the current political climate will have on mining, oil and gas industry in Australia? Would one of you like to answer that?
Besides the surge of the diesel price, that is going to basically replicate everywhere around the world. I think it's going to be, it's quite tough at the moment, because we're like in Australia, I feel like we are in a little bit of a bubble with what happens in the rest of the world. And of course, this is my perception, right? Like I come from a different country. I came to Australia where everything works. And suddenly, we have all of these issues happening in Europe. I think that, immediately what we can see is a surge in prices of things. Everything that is related to oil and gas is going to go through the roof. So that will actually take repercussions into not only the mining industry, but all of the industries. But I think that what we have to do from a company point of view, from a humanitarian point of view, is try to help as many people as we can, try to, continue our lives as much as we can. And to be honest with you, hope for the best. Hope that this finishes quite soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Romy, for that. We have another question. Do your undergraduate internships or vacation work positions offer mining operation certificates or relevant qualifications, or is it just work experience?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Look, it is dependent on the individual and what your aspirations are. So it's not a standard approach, but if you, as an example, have expressed a desire to have your first class mine manager's ticket, as an example, that needs underground experience. You need time on the equipment to actually be able to gain that. That's one of the formalities. But other parts of it obviously are about leadership, that it's about understanding the safety laws and that sort of stuff. So all of those things are contributors to getting those certificates that you mentioned there. But it is something that isn't a standard part, because our graduate programs obviously cover a whole range of disciplines. But if that's something that you want to tailor, that you're specifically interested in, then generally your direct supervisors can accommodate that.
Great, thanks for that. Now, oh, Jason, yes, you wanted to.
Look, I was just going to say, look, certainly at Newcrest, that's the same case. We can adjust programs depending on what our graduates are looking for in their program. If it's, again, more open pit versus underground experience, if they want their mine manager's ticket, again, we can certainly, adjust programs. There's certainly a lot of experiences in there that we want you to have, as Joe mentioned, but I certainly think, if people are starting to get an idea of where they want their career to go, I think it's really useful for us to be able to support that.
Great, thank you for that. Now, I see that there are a couple of you typing answers to the questions in there, but I think this is, again, something that's quite valuable for everyone to hear. It's a question from Joel, who said that earlier it was said that from second year, students should look at the graduate and vacation programs, and it's just disappeared. But I think the rest of what he said was, would it be worth first year students trying out for internships? Do your companies have policies on taking on first year students, and what is the likelihood of first year students getting those opportunities? Riolette.
Yes. We every single year have a few first years that get the opportunity to complete vacation work, and in most of those instances, it's first years that we've met at industry events, that you could really gather that they have a passion for the industry. They really sold on the industry. They've already made up their mind. They want to go into the resources industry. So I think, it's important, again, to come back to that connections that you make. I've heard also in the majority of the intake that we have every single year is from second year upwards, because then they, already in their specialization field or their major area, but there's always one or two vacation students that we do take in based on our connections with them and how they position themselves, and they, express that interest to follow a career in the industry.
That's awesome. And I would love to hear, because this is something I get asked all the time. I would love to hear from maybe Jason and Romy or Joe. Are your organizations, do they do the same thing with first year students, or do you only take students from later on? Romy?
Yeah, so we do. We take students from any year. If they're interested in the mining industry, they don't need to be mining engineers. Like I saw a chemical engineer was asking about metallurgy as well. I'll tell you a little story. We had two first year students a couple of years ago. One of them had his 18th birthday whilst working with us. We offer him, I know, such a cutie. We offer him, I love my children. We offer him 4 weeks work as vacation in July. And then we brought both of them, so a female and a male, and we brought both of them back for summer vacation, and then the following year winter vacation and another summer vacation. And then one of them is one of our senior geotechnical engineers now. So we do offer internships, vacation work. We also offer scholarships, and they don't need to have a certain discipline. So one of our students started as a chemical engineer, and then decided that that wasn't really what he wanted to do. And then he changed to civil engineer, and he's still employed with us 3 years later. So
fantastic. Awesome. All right. Yes, Joe. And if we could just be very brief, because we're running out of time.
Will do. So BHP introduced a first year intern program for the first time this year. We took 60 interns from across Australian universities. But the program design was very different to a normal intern program where it's hands-on learning about your discipline. We actually had the whole group together as a cohort, and they learned about the global business, about the range of careers, what we do on an ESG perspective, how we're looking at future commodities, how we approach inclusion and diversity, as well as getting some visits out to sites to actually see the operations in practice. what we wanted to do as an outcome from that program was show them the range of careers. So as an example, if we had a civil engineering student, they could look at it and say, okay, well, maybe I want to do my honours or masters in mining engineering. So showing them that the pathways are there and to try and increase the talent pool, because it's no secret here that the mining industry is looking for talent. And so what we were trying to do is encourage people to look at, how their chosen fields of study could actually apply to the industry. We're going to run that again this year as well, and the applications for that open mid-year. But there'll be more information on that in the next presentation. Sorry, it was as quick as I could do it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And that's great news. So in closing, and you've probably got about 30 seconds each. So, and I'm going to have to cut you off after that. In one sentence, why should students apply with your organization? What makes your company unique? And I'm going to ask all four of you, starting off with Romy.
Because we're awesome. Because we're global, because we offer a very structured graduate development journey, and because at the end of the 2 years, you have the possibility of doing 1 year abroad.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Under 30 seconds.
Awesome. Wonderful. Riolette.
I probably can just echo that, but I want to be a little bit different as well. At Thiess, over the years, the company has managed to keep that family ethos. So although it's corporate global, there's still that sense of belonging, that family feel, and a lot of support on the program, structured rotations, but a lot of support on the program from grad advisors, as well as me as your graduate coordinator.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Riolette. And Jason, over to you.
Look, I think at the start of your career, you want a graduate program that gives you the widest range of experiences. So our graduate program has been set up that way. 2 big Australian mine sites, different mining methods. One's a residential drive-in, drive-out site. One's a FIFO site. Already, you're starting to understand the mining industry better. Underground, open pit, surface operations are involved as well, which I think is fantastic. It gives you opportunities, to kickstart your career. Our graduates also are offered permanent contracts. So this is already the start of a really good career. You've got some security behind you straight out of university. And I think then you can get your teeth into really our graduate program, which is really an accelerated development program for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. And Joe, lucky last.
Yeah, so look, we offer those permanent contracts as well at the start. But I think in a nutshell, look, the career opportunities that you have at BHP are endless. Basically, if you can connect your passion and your values and your interests, you just push on those doors and they will open. Your career can go anywhere at BHP. We've got so many examples of people whose careers have changed track and path, 10 times, or they've moved globally countless times. So yeah, if you want it and you could drive it yourself, the opportunity is there.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of you. That was fantastic advice. And I'm now going to hand back to Elliot.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, team. That was a really good kind of insight as to lots of different employers who are doing relatively similar things in certain ways, but a really good way to just provide a lot of context to the students on. So to all the students that have come on board, thank you so much for attending this panel session. Kim, thank you very much for being an MC for today, and all the panelists, thank you so much for all your insights that you've given students.